So that's the way it rolls, and we are rolling now. We are all alive. Yes, we're all live and we're all on the screen, and we have been talking about swimsuits, people getting too cozy on a screen together, which came as a great surprise. Then, snowmobiles. We've got predictions that actually turned out better because of book launches. There's been babies, there have been weddings, there have been anniversaries, and that all happened before we started. So this is my plug for, if you've been thinking about being a host of some sort of a talk opportunity that brings real solutions, that brings diverse perspectives that maybe you've had or your parents taught you or your culture simply accepts that this is the way people age, this is the way people handle caregiving challenges, this is the way that people promote energy and enrichment as they continue to live, because that is aging. Most people are not against longevity, but I've had a lot of people go, I don't want to get old. I don't want to get old. Well, how do you feel about longevity? That's good. That's good. That sounds, as long as I don't live too long. That statement, I didn't even have an answer for, as long as I don't live too long. So since I don't know when that point is, that tipping point, I'm hoping that Brett Adler will have some perspectives and some solutions and will provide for us from his own experiences and expertise. And I don't know, maybe he's wanted to tell us a story about getting a new dog or a great adventure that he plans on having during these summer months. I don't know. So Brett, I'm going to start with you, but we've got Paige on the screen, Julia, and Barry's back. Barry was on a number of months ago, and I'm really glad that I got to see, I believe in an email, that he and his wife had some great news, and he was very willing to jump in this Monday after the American holiday of independence. And are we coming up to the big 250 next year? Okay, did the math. Great. Brett Adler, you helped me because I was spelling Julia's name incorrectly. I was like, why can't I find her on LinkedIn? You were helping me out. You're my counselor. Barbers help you out while they're snipping, give you ideas, talk about things. I got my hair cut recently. I was helping them. They were dealing with an aging person who keeps showing up and just sitting in the waiting area, and who says they want to get their hair cut and says, but not yet, and then spends time there. And it's like, what do we do when they seem kind of grouchy? And we just had a really good discussion about that, and not too much hair was cut off. All righty. So Brett Adler, my quiet counselor, off to the side going, you spelled it wrong. It's okay. People do that. And I'm like, thank you, Brett. Oh, please tell us about yourself and what your endeavors are that you're passionate about.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, I'll just say, having an eye for is part of why I spend a lot of time in software testing and quality assurance, because I tend to have an eye for errors and for an ability to break things. So it's kind of a blessing and a curse, because it's hard sometimes to not see it, and some people take feedback, but others. So I appreciate that you were open to that feedback. I actually made a new friend recently in the accessibility field that I'll talk about in a sec, because I saw some issues on her website and sent her a message and made some comments. And again, you never know how someone's going to take corrections from a stranger, but she was so good about it that we ended up chatting more. So just to back up, I've been a software developer in the software industry for 30 years. And when you talk about longevity, part of what first came to my mind to talk about is just people really need to pace themselves in this field for the long term, because part of my problem is I've already had 2 surgeries, one in my shoulder and one in my neck, due to spending a life hunched over a computer with bad ergonomics, and bad posture, bad devices, everything, right? Working too many hours. Years ago, I was working on a startup, and I was working, during the day, but then also nights and weekends. And I was in a lot of pain and kept telling myself, well, when the software is built, then I can rest and I'll recover, not realizing all the permanent issues I was causing to my body that ended up requiring surgery to recover from. So I just, when it comes to longevity, I think it's wise for people to really think about the long term and everything that they're doing. And as far as what I'm passionate about now, which correlates to that, a couple of years ago, I built a voice assistant to guide people through physical therapy that I built as a result of me having to go through my own physical therapy before the surgeries and then afterwards and still. And more recently, that's what got me into age tech and into digital accessibility, which is, for people that don't know that, it's similar to physical accessibility, like ramps and, things like that in the real world, but for digital. So, for example, people that have vision issues, people that have hearing issues. I use captions a lot now when I listen to things, right? And I have trouble with contrast on websites, and it seems to be real popular nowadays for websites to create small, light, gray fonts, right? I see people chuckling because we're all kind of used to it. And I wonder, I don't even know if young people can read it, let alone bulk of people. Like, it's not just for people with vision issues. It's very common nowadays that these websites are designed to look better than they are to actually be read, right? And so part of my passion area now has moved into that age tech and accessibility area to help bring a lot of the lessons and things that I've learned, both personally and through work, to the products that are out there, and to help make products better for people that are aging and people with disabilities, and for people to know the curb cut analogy, just for people in general, right? Like, I think making things more readable, making things better to use for certain people are going to make it better for everyone. So yeah, I'm just glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to hearing about their book when we get to it.
Wow. It's putting disability into a different tense for me. Disabling, the way that you were hunching, the way that your body was intent upon doing what you do very well, took away some of your ability to be pain-free, your ability to continue to function fully. And so that was disabling. And font that is less easily read becomes a disabler. And so a gentleman after church yesterday said, and my sister got me this large print Bible. And I'm like, I don't think even large print is going to help me now. But there was a point where I was just grateful for anything that was written big. It was easy to be a hired caregiver in that person's home. It was easy because we both spoke loudly to each other, and things were well lit. And it was easy for me not to trip and fall because tripping hazards had been removed. And so it was very enabling, empowering. It made me not get hurt at work, which was a big deal. We were taught how to stand, etc. So talk until I can't understand anymore. Talk smart. Say Brett stuff. You talked about, you're doing these things, and I kind of go, la, 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 la. He's doing tech stuff. Something that you've tackled or something that you are capable of. And then I'll let you know, woo, okay, I'm lost. I can't take that all in.
Well, something I'll say that I think
question.
Everyone can. Something I'll add to that I think everyone can understand, and something I didn't really think about it's kind of crazy. Like I said, I've been in software for 30 years, but none of the companies I worked for ever thought about accessibility. It was hard enough. Often I struggled to get companies to be concerned about what I call usability, right? Like, and some things handle both, right? So readability, that some of the stuff we talked about, that gets addressed. But I think that people have this idea that like disability is strictly related to a small class of people, right, that are maybe legally blind or legally deaf or in a wheelchair, right? And they, what I've come to learn is that they talk in the accessibility community. First of all, they talk about there's like permanent disabilities, there's temporary disabilities, right? Like I had periods of time where I couldn't use my arm very well, I couldn't use a mouse, right? It wasn't permanent, but I had to do a lot of workarounds for that. And then there's situational, either for your own sake, you have a certain issue that might just be happening temporarily, or like one of the examples they'll use is just in brightness, like in certain lighting when you're outside, it gets hard to read on the phone, or if I'm reading an article on my phone versus an article on my desktop, that gray font, that light font may be more situational, right? Like on my desktop, I can enlarge it and read it, but when I'm reading it on my phone, I like to have one of those small phones. And I think one of the problems is a lot of people now have these bigger phones, and I can tell as a designer that people, I think, are designing things and writing text for bigger phones. So when you get the small phone, you're like, how can I even read that text? And so I think it's and that they think it won't happen to them, but I think this is where the aging part comes in. That, I've heard someone say you're only like temporarily abled, or I think that's the way they call it, right? I mean, all of us eventually are going to have issues, whether they be situational, temporary, or permanent. And the permanent can come on, right? Like once your eyesight goes bad, you may not have problems for a large part of your life, but once you do, I had glasses as a kid, and then I had LASIK. So for a while I was good, but now my eyes are starting to go a little bit again, right? And I need reading glasses now and things like that. So all of a sudden I'm noticing things again that I didn't notice since I was younger. And so I think that it's, I've really, my mind has really opened up, and my awareness has really opened up to the range of people that need accessible, products, both physical and digital, and that it's not just limited to, this small subset of people that is often thought of as a small enough group that you don't have to worry about it as a company when you're building your products or your websites or your apps or things like that. So that's really opened my eyes up to how many people out there really need it, that it's actually really a small minority of people that don't need any of these accommodations.
Wow. Not being able to read your phone screen out in the sunshine. And somebody goes, so you were talking about end user and user experience they seem more broad. They seem like, okay, we're trying to sell this product. So that's going to be a lot of people. We want to know how because they're going to be rating us. They're going to, or be rating us. They're going to be rating us or be rating us. I'm wearing today, because it's kind of new, so you can see there's a wheelchair, and this person is shouting out. And I live in Waco. Waco Mobilize. So in one situation, I took a picture, and then someone came over wearing a shirt that said they worked for the city, and they took a picture too. It was simply a crack in the sidewalk that just, I don't know, maybe 4 inches. And so that would affect the people that I meet with once a month that invited me to be part of their initiatives and advocacy, self-advocacy. And they do walk audits or rolling audits of areas in the city. And they're trying to find the way to change the mindset. And I am a person who could not catch on to a lot of things like gluten-free for my students when I was a school teacher. I'm like, okay, no bread or crackers, but there was a lot more to consider. So I'm a person that needs to go from one to the other and go, oh, wow. So what was happening was supplies were being brought in one of those expanding foldable wagons, and it would thunk down in there. And they were like, oh my goodness, this is why we had the wagon, because it's so heavy trying to get this stuff out of here. A person with one of those monster strollers that you can probably fit 3 different kids of different sizes into, thunk, they went down into it. And what I said to the city person is, I would like to come in to City Hall and I would like to register a compliment when you fix this spot, because what I'm thinking about are the people that I now meet with who are mobilized by using a red cane, and that they could feel most of the sidewalk, but for that one piece, and it would flatten a person. Then I'm like, what about a perfectly capable athlete who is recovering from an ACL, torn ACL, who's just going to catch their boot in there or something? Just there's more to it than, well, I don't see that many people in wheelchairs having to use this spot, and maybe they can roll a little bit more to the right. Maybe it'll be okay. And it's just like that, but it's more than that.
Yeah, and a mom with a stroller or dad, of course. Like I think that's for those that don't know, the curb cut effect is part of what they talk about. You know how like in a lot of curbs now, where there's that part, and it was originally so wheelchairs can get up, but it also helps with people with strollers, with bag luggage, with all sorts of things, right? And so it turns out that making it like that doesn't just benefit people in a wheelchair, that it can benefit all sorts of people, right? And so just better design like that often, if not for everyone, certainly usually a larger group than people originally think. So yeah, becoming a big fan of that and understanding and opening my eyes to all of that. And so trying to put that back into the web, right, and into digital products, meaning mobile apps or even kiosks, ATM machines. Now that my eyes are open to it, I start to notice all over the place things that aren't accessible, right?
Yes, it's amazing. Julia or Barry or Paige, did any of you have something? I have to admit, I've been staring at that camera and I haven't looked down to catch any cues from your faces on something that you would like to say. And once you have responded in that way, I see that Russ Hedge is stopping in to say hello. I've stopped in to say hello on his show, another live talk show that happens before this one, because you all were so ready. You had all your stuff ready and no tech issues. I was like, oh, I'm going to go watch Russ's show. So he's saying good morning to everyone. Who had a comment, and then you can go on to tell us more about yourself.
I mean, what I would say, Brett, is I have my Coke bottle glasses here, and they are empowering, right? All these curb cuts, all these things that you are working on digitally, they make a difference in the quality of people's lives. They enable them to feel that they are still able to do things. And not everybody wants to use a walker. Lots of folks don't. And my mother, who had to use a walker, would forget hers all the time. But they enable people to live more fully, particularly in their homes, and that is what people want. They don't want to, by and large, wind up in facilities if they can help it. I know, Paige, you are working for a facility, so as I was saying that, I was thinking to myself, I'm putting my foot in my mouth, but you understand. And but yes, I mean, and I was not aware that there was a digital equivalent of this, though it makes perfect sense.
Wow. Well, Barry and Julia, you can take these moments to let us know about all sorts of things that have come your way, all of them with smiles. So go right ahead.
I mean, we're not going to talk about our wedding anniversary tomorrow or our new grandchild or anything like that. We already went over those things. Yeah. But just to kind of transition from what Brett was saying, I mean, one of the idea of accessibility and empowerment is as I just mentioned, is to help people live as well as they can. And oftentimes family caregivers are an essential component of that. I mean, they're the ones who are providing sometimes the hands-on support, sometimes logistical support, emotional support that help particularly older adults or people with disabilities remain in the community. And yet family caregivers undergo tremendous duress in providing that support. And as a consequence, many of them burn out, and that is not good for them, and it's not good for the people they're caring for. So Julia, who happens to be my wife, and I have been focusing on the needs of family caregivers for about 30 years. We've written 3 books, including our latest book, which just came out last week, called the AARP Caregiver Answer Book. I just happen to have a copy of this lying around. I'll just kind of show you guys real quick what it looks like. But
serendipitous.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not gonna hold it up for too long, but I will. I put it down now. But the idea is with this book and with all the work that we do is how to provide caregivers with the information that they need to have in order to do the best job that they can for their sake and for the sake of the people they're caring for. And we are both clinical psychologists, but in this book in particular, we don't just talk about family dynamics and self-care and just coping. We also talk a lot about finances and dealing with insurance companies and dealing with doctors and all the things that caregivers encounter to do the best job that they can do for the person they're caring for. So go ahead, Julia.
And we cover things like you mentioned, Christine, like making sure that it's well lit, the home, and that it's not too crowded, and that people aren't going to slip on rugs instead of having carpeting. All the little details, motion detector lighting. So I appreciate the things that we've been talking about. You mentioned early on that some people approve of longevity, but not getting old. And I think what they're saying is they don't want to be helpless. They don't want to feel like they cannot function on their own. Longevity is great when you have as much ability as possible. And so our book is really a roadmap for caregivers to help their care receivers have the best possible life that they can, even given their limitations. So I appreciate all the things you're talking about, Brett, in particular, because those are the things that when you bring something in, and it makes a difference to someone, it is very joyful. It's really a wonderful thing to see.
And I didn't want to ignore Peter. Peter Abraham was a guest about a month ago. And I remembered hospice, but I didn't remember diminished sight. And it's so, if I can be a little bit ageist at this moment, I see glasses on a person who's in high school, junior high, and I think, oh, they're like me. If you wear these, then you get to see the scoreboard up there. That's what our son, he knew everything that was happening on the field, on the court, but he had no idea what the score was. And I didn't realize that he had no idea what the score was because he couldn't, it was just a blurry red light thing up there. So you have to ask the other kids, what's the score? How close are we? It's down to the end. But if you see a pair of glasses on a little child, you wonder, what's wrong? What happened? You kind of expect some spectacles on a person who has any number of gray hairs. But, and if they don't, you want to know, wow, who did the LASIK on your eyes? Did this come with having cataract surgery? Wow, no glasses. I don't see any contact lenses. What's going on? It is a thought. You were mentioning people don't want to be seen using a walker because it's a big old label that's like hanging over their head saying, probably not interested in anything really terribly active, probably doesn't like fast moving cars going down the street. And it's like, what if none of that is true about that person? So anyway, back to your book. Who's the illustrator? It's very cheery. The illustrations in that book. And I know
you
that
mean
when you
this book
ask
here?
us,
No.
it's a tricky question now. It's like illustrated by a program.
Yeah, and I have no idea who did the
So
cover illustration.
there isn't a little name at the bottom, and illustrated by.
I don't believe so. I think it was just done by the publisher. Julia, do you know?
I think it's a team of people at AARP actually working
Oh
with.
dear, I stumped my. I don't really mean to do that, but yes. Now, if it comes up in any other conversation, or if you have a bunch of microphones shoved in your face, please, 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 we want to ask you about your new book. It has hit, national level. You'll know ahead of time. This could be one of the questions. No, I'm just having fun with you. And Paige, thank you for kind of surfing through everything with me from the moment that I first asked you to come in. It's already been alluded to that you're there when people have a need, or maybe they want someone else to have less needs, or someone wants to worry less. I don't know. When what you do, your expertise, is there kind of a category when you are the one that everyone turns to?
Good question. That's a good question. Internally or externally, right? So I do work for a senior living community. I will say we don't use the dirty F word at Cordia. We never say facility. To us, that's the big scary boogeyman, because we really truly try to be a genuine community. And we're so anti-facility. So the community is there when someone wants to continue their opportunities for creating a meaningful life, whatever that means, right? And it could be, it's often because of aging, right? We are an age capped community, but that can be any range of lack of abilities or lack of social setting, right? So it's not just because we have to move in. We actually at Cordia get really lucky. Most of our newest residents, whom we call members, it's a residential club. They move in because they're excited to move in and they have an acquaintance or a friend. So we're really lucky that way. We also have a very small consulting arm. So if there are other senior living communities or facilities who are interested in being better or trying to muddle their way through operational strategy or tech questions, we can hold their hand along the way as much as they'd like. We can pull them up with us, or we can help them just get their footing. My role specifically, though, is mostly tailored toward helping the communities that we have. What I find in senior living specifically, and not just aging services, is that most of the managers or leaders in senior living are so inundated in the weeds. They're just fighting fires all the time and doing the best that they can, that they have all these brilliant ideas because they're right on the front line, but they're never able to pull themselves out of the weeds long enough to initiate those solutions, right? So they see the problem. They're the best people to make the call. But they are so in it with their staff that they can't do it. And so my job is to take those managers or those directors and help them problem solve and project manage to get them solutioning, right? And sometimes that's a really simple solution, staffing or employee appreciation or resident engagement. And sometimes we need a totally different operational software, and it's going to take us a while to get this and implement it and hear everybody. So my role is that mucky gray space in the middle, that all the places when things slip through the cracks, I'm underneath the sidewalk trying to catch them and bring them back up to the surface.
You're underneath the sidewalk in that gray area. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Paige, okay, literally in the trenches. You're not sitting in your shiny office going, you need to do something about that. Let me know when it gets better. And then I'll descend the staircase down to. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you
It's
for
more
being
of
there.
a fighter jet or a parachute where we come in and you've got your goggles and your Mary Poppins bag full of items, and you go, okay, I don't know, I work for a very small corporate team. We've got 4 people, and I always am nervous to say I work for a small corporate team because that gives people that idea that you're saying, right? The shiny tower and the beautiful. I'm going to sit up here and watch these communities thrive below me, and it's just so not like that. It's I just don't think you can care for people that way.
Because you're you. So this is true in business. It's true in an organization or even a short-term effort. It's good in a crisis. It's good in a nonprofit to have someone who can see both sides. They can see what is pulling this person in, and they are dog paddling and struggling. And it's like, but you're such an excellent kayaker. And here you are trying to fight, going upstream. I love word pictures. So you're just like, wow, let's right the kayak, get you back where you function so well. Let's find that thing, that urgency that keeps pulling you. And it could be a person who's just, it's like, I have another tech question. I'm sorry. Could you, are you the concierge? Am I supposed to ask you about this? And it can be that their toe actually or accidentally tapped a rocker switch, which turned everything off that was plugged into it, but not everything. And it can be, oh my goodness, this is having issues, or you've got a malware thing going on. It is a good thing that you pulled us in. It can be short, it can be something that needs expertise outside of your expertise, that you're able to see what leadership, what's slowing down a leader from actually being able to come alongside to all of them. Because as I age, I want to be treated that way too. I want someone to be know that they can honestly say, hey, we've just ended up with an issue and we're trying to correct it, and we're going to need 48 hours. And because you expect to be able to participate in this way, etc., can you help us? Because you are such good friends with other members here in this community. Can you help us? I would just be like, wow, I am delighted. Thanks for bringing me in on this. You know what I feel like we're all missing is just having this kind of an interaction, and we can really fill a lot of the social needs, etc., while you guys work out this problem that's going to benefit all of us. And you can get back to what you do that we don't have to bother ourselves with. And we can enjoy a different kind of interaction. You're giving us a renewed purpose, a slight crisis, which I believe is right here. I actually remembered. I tore this out of an AARP. An AARP, I'm going to say magazine, because I'm giving a presentation and I wanted to refer to how important it is to conscientiously build your resiliency by placing yourself, and it's all right here in AARP, placing yourself into micro crises and having to work out those details. And I'm like, yes, that's kind of what I do when in my volunteer position now, which is picking people up and bringing them to appointments. I'm putting myself in a situation where I'm going to have to cope and be an advocate, but not too much, keep a professionalism, but also say, I just hate this for you. I am so sorry you're going through this, and that you're also experiencing these other kinds of difficulties when even the first one hasn't been solved, but also giving them their privacy and giving them the distance that they need. Just all of that, it's like, wow, if I continue to not say, just give me a really big, cozy, warm, massaging sleep chair and a TV that plays old shows that I already know what the ending is. That's all I want to do because I'm 65 years old and you shouldn't be expecting anything. I went into that voice because a person told me 15 years ago, do you realize I'm turning 50? I just don't have energy for life anymore. And I'm like, are you sick? Oh my goodness, I'm turning 50. Also, I didn't say that in the moment. She just felt that responsibility was just too much. And I'm going, old. Why does old sound like this to other people? Why can't old mean, wow, you've seen a lot. I fully remember the 200th, the bicentennial of this nation. Fully remember it. That's a privilege. That's not like, oh my goodness, you've been alive for more than 50 years. Shouldn't you just be kind of toning it down? And so anyway, I got onto my ageism box. I'll jump off again. Brett, we started with you. And you got some compliments on what you were saying. I'm noticing now you're wearing a code shirt. Is there something else that you wanted to refer to earlier, but I didn't give you a chance because I was jabbering?
No, but I'll mention two things. If I seem distracted, my dog, of course, always, she decides to come awake during calls like this. So
we needed a dog. Very good. Is it a small dog that can be lifted or a really big one?
No. 70-pound golden doodle that's laying on the floor right now.
Oh, wonderful.
But of course, she got vocal. I was glad I had followed Barry's lead and put the mute on, though, because she started barking when someone came to the door.
Of course.
So I got a bit distracted. And then the shirt is an organization I've got involved with recently called Code Your Dreams. It's kind of the full logo there, but it's a nonprofit here based out of Chicago, but they're starting to go around the country with chapters that helps younger people and people in disadvantaged areas and other things like that with programming and learning code. So I'm actually helping them soon to make sure their website is accessible, and I'm just volunteering with events and things like that. So they're a great organization here in Chicago, and been really happy to help them. So thanks for asking about the shirt.
Did a person there have the wherewithal to say, hey, let's ask Brett. He is mindful and he is an expert in accessibility. Or were you proactive and said, that is another factor that you definitely want to address?
Well, it's actually a little of both. I have to give them credit. They're the ones that actually turned me on to accessibility because they had an event in April, I think it was April, a few months ago, called Hack for Accessibility. So it was a hackathon where they brought together hundreds of people that created teams and created ideas to make accessibility better, both physical and digital side. And it was I just signed up to be a mentor for that, but signing up for that event I was like, I better start learning some things about accessibility. And then after that event, I was even more interested. I met a lot of people there, and they had tables and things like that. So I credit them for bringing it to my attention and really awakening it in me. And then I did, proactively turn back around and say, hey, I'd like to help make your website more accessible. So a little bit of both.
Wow. Thank you for something earlier you said, and now I'm into aging. And I'm like, thank you for being into aging. And you know what? We are. We just
and that was another group of people that helped get me into that too. When I was doing the Voice BT space, I found a group that was on Clubhouse. I don't know if everyone even knows what that is, but there's a group there that Linda and Debbie on there and they went to the AARP H-Tech Collaborative events and things like that, Mary Furlong's events. So I started going to things like that, and that really got me into the age tech space.
Oh, those are
Before the accessibility side
familiar.
with the PT, we were looking into that a lot.
What's Debbie's last name?
Howard.
Yes,
Linda Sherman.
yes, the gal that spends a lot of time in Japan.
Yes.
And boy, if you're going to have fun
Both of
with
them
tech, go to one of the conventions in Japan. They ramp it up. Julia and Barry, is this a first book for either of you, or is this your first co-authored opportunity?
No, this is our third co-authored book, and each of us wrote a book independently before that. So between us, we have 5. So this is the 5th. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. We're
So,
both psychologists, but we also are both writers, and it's a way for us. It started, the working together on a book started when our kids were launched and we were empty nesters, and we thought, well, what can we do to do something together? I know other people travel and they do other things, but we started writing.
We sit at our computers. We don't go anywhere.
when we're watching, maybe it's Netflix, 3 words will pop up. This movie is dynamic, thoughtful, edgy. Another one will come up, comic, irreverent, whatever, locker room humor, what I don't know, but different, and then you go to another one. And so I guess it's to help you decide, is this for me? So I am just full of really difficult questions today. Don't know what happened. But do you feel like it's practical? Do you feel like it's analytical? Would you call it a DIY? Would you call it resource? Can you throw a few words like that around so that someone can go, oh, so that book is my kind of book?
It's a resource, no question. It's a roadmap for caregivers, because it's like 150 questions approximately. Everything that people have asked us over all the years that we've done caregiving work and work with caregivers, it's answering all of those questions. So it's for especially new caregivers, but really anyone who wants to know how to keep paying for taking care of their loved one, or who needs to move them to a community.
A community, very good.
Not
Yes.
a facility, a community. And how does that work? And are you still the primary caregiver, even though they're living somewhere else? So many questions, so many answers. I think it's hilarious that you asked us a question earlier that we could not answer, because the whole idea of this book is we can answer all the questions about caregiving, but we can't answer the question about the cover. No.
Yeah, I mean, other word. I mean, it's very pragmatic. It's very conversational. It's nuts and bolts. It's really intended to be. So one of the things that we both believe is not all help is helpful, and this is intended to be helpful because it really provides specific information that people need to know. And because oftentimes what happens is when people begin caring for a family member or another friend or neighbor, they don't really know how to do a good job, and nobody wants to do a bad job. People want to do the very best job that they can, and yet they also have other responsibilities, and they have to figure out how are they going to do this new role and balance it with all the other obligations that they have. And so it becomes a matter of how, what's the way to go forward, especially if it's not going to go on for days and weeks, but literally for months and years. And so we're trying to provide some, as Julie says, a roadmap, some guidance to give people some idea of where they're headed, how to manage things. We also trust that people are going to come up with their own solutions that they're going to learn along the way. They're going to see what works exactly in their situations. There's no book that can address every individual situation, but we want to give people the lay of the land here. We want to give them some ideas of resources that exist in the world that they can tap, and to really give them some confidence that this is doable. It is not impossible. And speaking of communities, one of the chapters that we have in the book is all about being a family member of a loved one in a community. And we both did that for my mother and stepfather, both of whom lived in skilled nursing facilities at the end of their lives. Not exactly the kind of facility that you're, excuse me, community that you're. No. Right. So, but what I found as a family member for my mom and stepfather is that I knew a lot about being a caregiver for them and being a caregiver in the home setting, being a caregiver, being a guide for other caregivers. But when it came to the specific communities that they were in, it took me a while to figure out how I could be an effective voice for them. I could advocate for them. And because frankly, it wasn't always, they didn't kind of sit me down the first day and orient me and say, if you want to advocate for your mother or stepfather, here's what you should do. And so I had to kind of learn the ways of that particular community. I had to learn how not to be a pest, because that I learned, I learned that through trial and error, because I became a pest, trying to badger the nurses and badger the nurses' aides about how to best help my stepfather who had bed sores. But it became it was not effective if I was badgering them, and if anything, they would run the other direction when I would walk into the community. So one of the chapters in our book is specifically about how do you do this? How do you find your way to being effective in what you're doing in that setting? And because you don't stop being a caregiver, you don't stop being a loving family member. You was just a different activity in that setting. And so that's one of the chapters of the 13 that we have in the book. Another is about the home setting. Another is caring for people with dementia. Another is, caring for a spouse or caring for a parent or dealing with siblings, because, what we have found over the years is dealing with siblings is one of the hardest things, particularly for adult children who are arguing with those siblings about caring for a parent. So we cover a very wide range of caregiving related topics in various settings to give people the help that is actually helpful.
Even after the caregiving is over, we address how do you cope with no longer being a caregiver and the caregiving identity. What do you do with that? How do you move forward from there? So we tried to cover soup to nuts, but we'll see.
Because, when people ask us about caregiving, and people, it's not just psychotherapy clients, it's colleagues, and I have plenty of colleagues who pick my brain, or neighbors come knock on the door and say, hey, let me tell you what's going on. They don't just want to know about, okay, you're the psychologist, here's a psychological problem. No, they want to know, what do I do? Period. It's just like, what do I do? We have to figure out how to pay for this. We have to figure out what do we do with all these insurance forms. We have to figure out how to make the doctors listen to us. There's a whole host of things that regularly come up for family members in this situation.
Yes. Psychologists, social workers, nurses, doctors, specialists. It is different when it is the person that you've known most or all of your life. It's just all different. And it's hard, behavioral science might be one of the categories that might be at a higher learning, place. And it's just like, this doesn't feel like science right now. I feel sabotaged. I feel stupid. And I know that I'm smart. Why is this all so hard? It's not resolving. I'm not able to put it in a spot because it's just all over me and through me and around me. And now it's become an issue because the neighbor thinks that I should be doing more or I should be doing less. And it's like, I never even had to talk to that neighbor before, but they are worrying through their window. And so trying not to be a pest, trying not to be pestered. It's just so much. So, Paige, I started you off differently, and you very beautifully put this back into the right spot. And that was, I asked you if people come to you when they're worried, when they're in a crisis, and you're like, mostly they come here because they want to, they're looking forward to it. This is the sort of place where they're just going, wow, I look forward to my continued endeavors and trying something new and being around other people and just finding out how great I can be, how, what an asset I can be in this, my new neighborhood. And I get to witness that with my mother, who chose to age in place in her home. And then, boop, because she's a grown up, decided, I want to age in this place that I have toured, and they have answered 2 solid typed pages, because she is a secretary, on what if this, do you have, will I be expected, I would rather not. And everything was answered. And boy, the stories of this situation, the meeting attended, the ride that they all took to go see that museum, how this person helped to bring in groceries and is another new best friend. All of it I get to enjoy. It's so wonderful. Decision made. And yeah, this isn't scary at all. It's, whoa, good job. All those years of working and making sure that finances were ready to take on a situation like this. Decision made by her and her alone. We heard about it after the decision was made. I love it. I love it. No hand holding. However, those groceries out in that storm needed some other feet and hands to expedite, and they were there and available for her. So I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's always that way, right? I would be lying if I told you that every person who moved in was excited to do it and did it on their own will. So let me be truthful. We have plenty of people who move in because of that. And to me, that feels like success. I think more importantly to me, right, is that when a person does move in, we remember that they're experts on life. Right. Being a senior or making it to 82 or whatever age you want to throw on there. Right. Just means that you have more expertise on life than I do. And you're already an expert. And I think what happens, and people aren't excited to move into senior living for good reason, right? The industry has a negative reputation for good reason. But if you're an expert, and if I'm an expert and I make it to 82 and I've got all this expertise, and then I move into a community, and then everyone expects me to be excited to have all the decisions made for me, and to give me a lot of honey dearie sweeties, right? All of a sudden, I'm not the expert anymore, and I have all my dignity taken away and all my autonomy taken away. Why on earth would I want to move into a community in the first place? So I think that not everyone's super excited, but sometimes people move in and they're not sold on it, they're not stoked, but they're all adults and they have the opportunity to figure it out and to make their own community and to continue to do so. I believe it's just our job to facilitate such. So creating those opportunities so they can do their own thing. And it's amazing when you empower people just a little bit, what they'll do with it, right? We have seniors running technology pilot programs because that's what they want. They want online ordering and we don't know how to do it yet. They are running the pilot program and giving me bi-weekly feedback. That is all them, right? So we just have to be willing to let people keep being people. And that's exciting to me because it's a whole lot easier to relate. Brett, in the beginning of this episode said, we don't think we see a lot of people with disabilities, but they're humans and they're everywhere, or something to the like of that. But we tend to other aging, right? Oh, well, people who are aging. Oh, well, those seniors over there, or oh, well, when I'm a senior. But isn't it just like if you're aging, you're breathing, right?
Mm.
And so when you start to see yourself as, oh, well, what would I want in 50 years? All of a sudden, it's a lot easier to build communities that you would want to move into, because I don't think that what I want in 50 years is going to be that much different than what I want right now.
You know, Paige, I'm going to give you a hard time, but you're a young person, right? It's easy to say that. It's harder. It's harder. I think I'm the oldest person on this group here. It's harder, and our outlooks change, and we think of ourselves as being a certain age, which is usually far younger than our chronological age, and yet, and we don't accept some of our weaknesses readily. We deny them or we minimize them. And that's where family members sometimes come in too, because yes, we want to accord people all due dignity and respect and self-determination. And yet it's also that conversation with family that sometimes helps them, helps that older adult come to accept some of their limitations and maybe find a setting which is more conducive for supporting those limitations at this point in time.
Absolutely. And I think I feel like the expert on senior living until I have someone in my family who needs help, right? My very best friend is 77, and when his wife, she had earlier onset dementia, and all of a sudden I was clueless. And now he's no longer a caregiver, and his wife has passed on, and he's in his late 70s. And I could tell anybody in the world how to adapt and need help, except for that guy, because he's my Mr. Miyagi, right? Like, he's made me wax on and wax off, and I was the Karate Kid with him for years. So how all of a sudden I need your book, right? I work in senior living, but I need it because, well, I'm not going to tell him to move into my community. No way. Like, it's a totally different dynamic, I think, when it's somebody who's befamilied or befriended along the way. I think
we were I totally agree. We were writing about caregiving before we were caregivers, but once we were caregivers, it's a whole different ball game. I mean, it's so hard to think. You feel overwhelmed. You're totally stressed. It's just hard to parse out what you need to do. And that actually is a main reason why we wrote this book, because we know what it feels like, and we know other people feel the same thing. And so this is just, you can look up a simple answer to a simple question and not feel so overwhelmed. That's our goal. Our goal is to help people feel like they can do the best possible job as a caregiver.
Paige, you used, and I'm finishing with this, and we're going to wave goodbye. You used the F word very perfectly. And that was that you talked about creating the opportunities that are life enhancing and facilitating the reaching goals for that 70, 80, 90, 100-year-old. That let me facilitate that as you would with anyone else. It's like, let me unlock that door for you. Let me make sure that the right conditions are here for you to excel and to surprise yourself, and so that we can both cheer and say, "Ha! You made it!" So thank you so much, all of you. I'm always I look and I think, oh my goodness, we have another half hour to fill. What else can we talk about? And then it's gone. So thank you, Barry and Julia. I'm so grateful. Thank you to Russ and to Nurse Peter for acknowledging us and cheering us on. Brett, you never lost me. I stayed with you. You made tech accessible for me. And hey, you know what? You'll make it. You'll make it to 35 weeks. I know you will. This is a good relationship that you're in. Goodbye, people. Goodbye. I miss you already.